Welcome back to the Peace Build. My name is Nicholson, and this is a channel where I like to go deep on what has changed my life and how to help you who are watching to do the same thing. This is the fourth chapter of this online book. This chapter is called Strengthening Your Willpower, because you need a certain sense of agency to live a peaceful life and to have peace exude from you in the atmosphere around the people that you love, that you want to see live the best life that they can. And one of the main things that I have found that gives us as human beings a sense of crystal clear, strong willpower is choosing yourself every single time over a substitute. Which means the ubiquitous behavior of vicarious living has to go. Lots of us find so much comfort in not taking responsibility over our lives, and we have been conditioned to enjoy the secondhand experience of escapism, of living through someone else's dreams, living through someone else's projections, through someone else's story. The way life is set up is we can only experience all of what's around us right now through the self. Which means we can't live through another. We really can't. Though we may try. In movies and YouTube channels and music, in the media that our friends share with us on vacation and in their relationships and in their accomplishments, we try to take this perspective that we have here, that was a gift, this organic gift of being able to look directly into our own experience, to be the protagonists of our own lives. And we attempt to replace that with someone we see elsewhere. Because at least then we won't be responsible for the consequences of their actions. And meanwhile, we can sit back and have the sense that we are living a fulfilling life, although we're in the dugout and they're in the game. If we look very honestly at this experience of being a human, it is the best video game that we could ever think of, even beyond what we could think of. This first-person experience is beyond anything that we could have ever imagined. And the choices that we have among us can be incredibly overwhelming. To be able to look this way and this way and this way, and to know fully well that those all could end up in different results, depending on how much energy we put into that direction. And it's all on us. And the pressure of this in line with the opportunities that we have to substitute ourselves causes us to take the power, the willpower that's flowing here, and give it to someone else. This ability to choose, to exercise our own judgment, this is the greatest gift that we have. Other than life itself, other than existing in this moment as the first gift, the second gift is the ability to choose based upon what we're aware of. And this is the freedom that we have. Lots of people have asked me, do we have free will? Well, we are as free as the amount of choices that we're aware of. And we can only be aware of the full scope of the choices that we have if we, in this moment here, live through the heart, live through the base of phenomena that flows in and out, that gives us full range of our ability to act, to move, to make a decision. But as soon as we forget that this is the center and we try to give it to someone else, someone like a father, someone like a movie star, someone like a teacher, a romantic partner, and we give them the option over our own lives to choose which way we should go, then we take a back seat and we never get to blossom in such a way that the universe has designed for us. Everything around me right now, even the rocks, have a certain design of expression, a certain will, even if it's rudimentary. A certain will gives them a certain shape that they maintain over time. It's coherent. And we're the same way. If you refuse to phone it in, and through every up and down and left and right, you decide that I'm going to live, then on its own, just like everything else in the creation, you will find a coherent sense of character will blossom from that. If you choose yourself every time, no matter how stressed you are, no matter the complexities of the situation, you will find that the natural expression will flow out on its own. You will know what to do depending on the circumstance that you're in. Because only you, at the end of the day, have all the context for your own life. Even if you research people from the past that you believe are wise and made good choices, they don't understand the context for your life. They only understood theirs. And they were only an expression of genius because they lived where they were. And so many of us don't. So many of us have a deep sense of guilt that we don't want to experience the pleasure of simply being at home in our own bodies, in our own minds, in our own consciousness. And we want to push away this sense of eternal rest that we can experience moment to moment. Because maybe at some point in time, when we were younger, when we weren't afraid to use our agency, maybe we didn't know any better, and we use it to hurt someone or ourselves that cause consequences in the future. And to prevent ourselves from taking on more and more consequence, over time, we have learned how to live through someone else and how to never accumulate this series of cause and effects to where we are just sitting idle. The embarrassment, the shame, caused a sense of self-neglect. Putting yourself in a comfortable prison where, sure, it looks great. You might be doing well on the outside. Maybe even people are praising you for living in line with someone else's dream. But you deep down know you're trapped. You deep down know that you're locked up, but you're holding the key in your hand. So at any time, if you decide, you can walk to the door, take the key, unlock it, and walk out. But this period of mass hysteria and mental instability because of the immediate communication of our age, which is the single most cause of vicarious living and moving away from home, is the fact that we are able to communicate with people instantly all over the world. A great tool, but a great form of escape. This has not only been going on in our own lives, it's just way easier to do it today. But as I research history and myths of the past, I've seen that this is a recurring pattern of humanity to give away the ability to respond and replace it with the mob. Because if you don't embrace the ability to judge, to discern what is the right choice, then your operating system will default to the lowest common denominator, which is social conditioning. And the purpose of social conditioning, a bureaucratic system of control, is to organize and standardize a large amount of people. This is the only way we can live in harmony, is if we're organized under a set of rules and myths, beliefs, to the point where we have substituted our own common sense for this conditioning. And this has not only gone on today, I found a credible story from biblical scripture. I myself am not religious, but I do research ancient texts because there's a lot of wisdom in there. And one of the stories that really caught my eye as it relates to this topic is the decision to have Jesus Christ crucified. While in the courtroom with Pontius Pilate, Jesus was asked many questions. And he even decided to not speak at certain points in the questioning, which I thought was very powerful. If you know the truth, you don't have to prove it to anyone else. But in this instance, because there was so much weighing on this decision, and Pontius Pilate was intimidated by the being who he was judging, because he didn't understand how a person, a being of so much power, could be so still when he knew death was coming. The death of his body was coming. And of course I wasn't there, but I could imagine the pressure within him was building and building and building, and the people were watching. And the fate of the historical moment was in this one man's hands. And because I feel he didn't have a connection to what was around him, he didn't have a real relationship, because he was vicariously living through the laws of the land, which don't always align with nature. Most times they don't. He couldn't put it on himself to judge, to make the right choice, to say, is this man guilty or is he not? So as a result, he said, I wash my hands of this and I give it away to the people, to the mob, who, as we all know, decided to crucify this man. And beyond the biblical context of this story, we can look at it from a psychological context, just within ourselves. If we look at Jesus as the self, Christ as the higher self, and we look at Pontius Pilate as the conditioning, we can see that if we, as the self, hand over the ability to make a crucial choice in our lives, it doesn't mean that there's no consequence. It doesn't mean that the game is paused and life goes on as normal. What it actually means is that you crucify your center. You put yourself on the proverbial cross and you kick yourself out of the temple that you're responsible for, and you bring it down to the lowest levels of what it means to be human. You bring it down to the animal levels that look at a mystical, wise force and decide that this is dangerous because it is different. This will harm me because it's something I've never seen before, and because at the animal level, we are tribal beings. We don't want to see beyond the cliques in which we exist. We think that anything outside of that must be destroyed. We have to disintegrate whatever looks beyond the conditioning, because the conditioning is what keeps nations together, families together, relationships together, if you're operating at a certain level of consciousness where you have the desire to substitute yourself for something else. And as you can see, this can have grave consequences. If we look at our nation today, I'm located in the United States of America. The original design, although it wasn't perfect, was for the power to be in the people's hands through a vote, a republic. With a small centralized power, if any. And this is important to establish because this creates a diversity across the nation, which makes it strong and makes it flexible and able to adapt to a circumstance that no one could predict. It's like if you're a wise farmer and you want to maintain the health of your crops over time, you won't plant one crop over the whole field. You will plant many different crops because a virus could come, and that virus, if your investments in the ground are diversified, then the virus will only affect maybe one or two species of plants. But if all the species are the same, if that one virus comes in, it can knock out the whole investment, and everything you worked for can be gone in a short period of time. So this is what can happen if people condition themselves to vicariously live through an institution, through one leader, through a centralized power, as it takes all the energy and attention that could all be growing in their own direction straight up, just like all the trees that are going straight from the ground. You take all of this and you put it into one ruler. And the intention of a democracy can slowly turn back into a monarchy. If we look across history, we can see that this has happened. And it could happen here. But in other ways, if that transformation hasn't happened already, we can see that it has happened already in other ways, just in terms of the communication. As we can see, the level of communication that people have with themselves and with other people on Earth. We can see it's starting to form around the internet. If we just take a look outside in any modern city, this is different on the countryside where people are more aware, they have a better relationship with their own lives. We can see in the metropolis that people's attention is centered around the phone. When people are on street corners, at restaurants, at sports games, at family reunions, we can see that people are on their phone. They have decided to phone it in because the pressure of being responsive to the emotions of your family you haven't seen in years, or the movement of a star player at the game, or the emotions of your romantic partner. They're too much. So the three dimensions that we are designed to contain and organize, many of us have decided that we can only manage two dimensions. We can only manage to communicate through a text. Even if on the same device we could call, a text is better. And the more we do this, the more we vicariously live through a gadget, the harder it gets to understand the three dimensions that we can experience when we pick our heads up from the sand. If you are sensitive enough to this phenomenon that's only going to ramp up over time, if you are looking at a screen for long enough, what will happen is your eyes, your ears, your senses, all of them, will start to calibrate to the two dimensions. And even when you pick your head up from that realm and you look around, you'll have to squint because the richness of the world around us has left our grasp because we have ignored it. And the opposite will happen as well. If we attend to the richness of these three dimensions around us here, and we try to go back into the two dimensions, you will find that there's an adjustment period. The body doesn't like it. The eyes are designed to look at three dimensions, though many of us are comfortable with two. Now, what this can do to a human being, maybe not immediately, but in the underlying currents of who they are, it will degrade their experience and make them inept at just being here. And you will only operate at a fraction of who you are as a human being, and the odds of you being fulfilled at looking at the movie of someone else when you yourself are right here is very slim. Artificial intelligence has replaced human intelligence. It's getting there, but we have a choice. We have a choice to decide at this day and age, although there's so much money going into artificial intelligence, we have a choice. Are we going to trust the machine over our own divine brain? Are we going to trust self-inquiry over computer inquiry? Are we going to overlook the computer that is already installed, that installed everything else here? Are we going to look to that, or are we going to look to the invention that came out of the mind to begin with? Are we going to slowly move towards the movies that we see that we're afraid of, like iRobot and The Matrix, where people have substituted their mind so much to where they trust a RoboCop over a real one? Generations from now, 3, 5, 8 generations from now, will we look back on a time where people enjoyed speaking with each other on the street, where people enjoyed the freedom of thinking for themselves and feeling for themselves? Will that be a distant memory, or will we be able to preserve that? Because in this moment right now, we have decided to live here at the center through our heart. We have decided to take on the risks and rewards of living as an autonomous being. Yes, many of us can feel the creep of the machine, but you can also feel the dance of life flowing within you right now. And at any moment, you have the choice to choose the self, to not be like Pontius Pilate, to be alive as best as you can, to be awake, to trust that life will bring you back to the equanimity that you desire. Because when we look closely at this habit of vicarious living, we can see that it all comes from the desire to balance ourselves out. If you are stressed, if your relationship isn't going well, if your finances are struggling, if your sense of purpose hasn't unfolded yet, this doesn't mean that it's time to hide. This doesn't mean that it's time to put your head in the sand. It's time to look deeper at the situation. Because in this depth of perception, there's an automatic order that will come to you about whatever it is you need to handle. This is true with my life and all other human beings who decided to have the courage to look at life straight in the eye and take advantage of this infrastructure, this incredibly divine, magical infrastructure that allows us to just sit and be and observe and have the patience to allow our innate intelligence to blossom into something that you're surprised of. If you live vicariously, you never give yourself the chance to solve your own problems. You never give yourself the training that's required to develop a willpower that can take your life where you want. You will never have the treasure of creative thinking. You will only be inside of the world of someone else. If you don't live in this world, then you will inevitably wander into someone else's. There are all kinds of traps in society that are hard to see. Some of them are invisible, some of them are visible. But the world has already been built. The shelter that we are seeking and the inventions of man is unnecessary, because the world, for us to roam around and dream and go on adventures, to explore to our heart's content, to see things beyond our imagination, to live the fairy tales that we see on the screen when we walk into an IMAX theater. It's already here. Right now, you're in a front row seat to your own movie. So now the question is, are you going to live this movie? Or are you going to walk in the theater that isn't your own? Are you going to take your ability to respond and shrink it to only reacting to the person on the screen? Or are you going to take time to remove yourself from this dimension that traps your consciousness and put it into this one that liberates it? This is the choice that we all have. And choosing the latter will build your peace, because you will build rapport with life itself. So this is all I have here for this topic. This is a form of inspiration, but it's also a warning to pay attention to what could come if you don't pay attention to what's happening right now. There is a force in this world, there is a force in this society that desires to entrap the free souls of people. This is a dualistic experience. The society in which we live in has light and darkness, and there are dark forces that want you to be enslaved, but there are forces of light that want you to live. These are two voices that could live in your head at any point in time, and I hope that listening to this message here, turn the lights on. So if this is something you're struggling with, an offer that I have through my business is a form of deep work in the form of a conversation, a consultation, a one-on-one discussion to understand the habits that you have and how to liberate you from that. I have helped people from all around the world to live a more free life. What I have found that the main cage that people find themselves in is linguistic, and if you have a conversation with someone who has unlocked many linguistic doors in their life, which is myself, then you yourself can be liberated from that. I've also written an ebook titled How to Be Peaceful, and everything that I would tell someone in a consultation that could liberate them. I put it all in a book. And if you found these words to be valuable and you want to exchange the energy that you felt you received in this talk, then there's also an option to donate. You can put whatever amount. And all of those opportunities to work with me on a deeper level, they're all in the link below. They will be in my bio as well. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope you take the time to reflect on these words. And when you feel the itch to live through something else other than yourself, then you recognize that this is not inevitable. You recognize that you can look straight and go forward. And with that, I will see you lovely people on the next episode. Peace.